Welcome to the second episode of Wagging Tails podcast. On this episode, we have Samantha, who is the owner and the operator for Welfare for Our Community Dogs. Welcome to the podcast, Sam.
Hello, thanks for having me.
So, Sam, before we go on, I just want to ask, why do you have community dogs rather than street dogs as your, title?
Well, very simply, these dogs are part of the community, right? They're literally on the streets. But I would say that with all, over the years, people have come to realize that these dogs, they're everywhere. They're not just on the streets. They are in the forest, they're in the parks, and they're integrating into the society, not by choice, right? The forest, their homes are getting taken away from them and things like that. So they come out, look for food, trying to integrate with the community. It's like cats, right? They're part of the community. People feed them, they love them, they adopt them, and then they become ours. So they start with the community, and then they come into our homes. So cats, community dogs, now they're the same thing.
So, Sam, tell us more about what do you do for the community dogs?
Okay, so basically we do a whole bunch of stuff, ranging from feeding to rescuing. But I think what sets me apart from, other groups or welfare groups for that matter, is that we fight for the smallest things. So, for example, we have a bunch of dogs in the north. They've been disturbed by a bunch of cyclists, a bunch of motorists. So I liaised with like LTA, SLA, and got them road signs fixed up. Sometimes we deal with the traffic police and get cameras up for monitoring purposes, depending. So these are the things that we go like a little bit more beyond. I would set myself apart from the other welfare groups in that sense that we literally fight for the welfare of the community dog in every sense of the word.
So I actually have seen quite a lot of these stories with cyclists in particular, and it's always the same old story, the human demonizing the animal.
Of course.
It doesn't matter what the animal is, it's always the animal's fault. Before I talk a little bit about that, can I just hear a little bit about what sort of situations have you had to deal with? A specific situation which created the need to actually deal with the traffic police and the LTA?
Right. So specifically, without mentioning the location, a very secluded part of the north, where they were, which came to my attention, of course, where there were these motorists who were doing like a Pasir Gudang thing. Pasir Gudang is, if you're not familiar, it's like a little motoring kind of race, going up the slopes, coming down with funny looking, weird tires. And I'm not going to go into detail about, I'm just going to try to keep this as nice as possible, but that's really what it is. So it disturbs the dogs, not just the dogs, the wild boars, the monkeys, all our wildlife, but more our dogs because they reside there. And we go there and feed daily and we witness all this. They will come around, they will just ram the bikes, to have that vroom. That scares the crap out of the dogs. They will literally run into the forest. And that's not what we want, because when we come, we want to feed them. Because what we're having here is conflict. We have food for the dogs, the wild boars come eat it, monkeys come eat it. So my style is I make sure that I see the dogs eat them. And with all these distractions, it really makes things really quite difficult for us, for feeders, to go about and do what we want to do.
So one thing you mentioned there that I found quite interesting was about the weird tires, the revving of the engines and all of that stuff. Now I know humans can be very self-entitled about this sort of thing, and they think, no, it's our roads and we can do what we like. But just to see this from the dog's point of view is they don't understand what these people are doing. So it triggers the dog's fear response, putting them into freeze, flight, or fight. Now the problem is that these guys are living on the streets, these community dogs. They don't have a very large freeze response because it doesn't serve them well. So that leaves freeze is gone. So they've got a flight and they've got a fight. Now, if those bikes, whether they be cyclists or motorbikes or cars, or it doesn't matter which, if they get too close to a food source or to puppies or to a territorial area which they see as a need to be protected, they take away that flight response as well, leaving a fight. So when I've seen these stories, effectively, of cyclists and motorbikes being chased by dogs. Well, do you know what? If somebody went right by my house and my daughter was playing outside in the garden and they were speeding past on a motorbike, sure as hell I'm going to have something to say about it. And these dogs are just doing that. So I know this is not exactly what we're talking about, but I do feel it's important for the public to understand that these dogs are doing exactly what comes naturally to them. And when we go to these secluded areas especially, it's down to the human to show respect for where these dogs are living. Or else, if we take that away from them, they will come and live on our streets, and that it presents more of a conflict, which could become a problem more so, rather than then just chasing the odd bike or two. So, with that in mind, what have you actually done other than like getting a street sign up and things like that to help the cyclists or the bikers know exactly what they need to do differently?
So let's just go to cyclists first. So I've gone on this group called the SGPCN Cyclists. I've made friends with the admins.
So that's like the Singapore cycling...
like the noose and the nose and the house and the who's are on that page.
Okay.
You know, from the apek with the Kucing Kurak bicycle to the bros with the $5,000 bikes, you know.
So everything from the fancy road bikes to like the makeshift homemade
to
stuff.
the alas, right? To the ala bikes with baskets and what have you. So these people are going into territories like Pasir Ris, for example, is a very good example. Lorong Halus, there's now new...
Before you go on with that, just for people that don't live in Singapore and don't know, Pasir Ris is...
on the extreme east end.
Extreme east, but it's only fairly recently, in the last sort of 20 years, that that's actually become developed.
Yeah.
Before then, it was really
Forest.
just part of the forest, part of the jungle.
Yeah. And then now they've actually made that into cyclable path and roads. So it leads to the jetty as well. We've got a jetty at the corner, which not everybody goes to, so you might not know about it, but it is a pretty secluded part, and now not so secluded because the PCNs are getting, made for people to cycle through and walk through. So a lot of human traffic now as compared to what the dogs were used to way back then.
Yeah. But you could also argue in that case that it's not necessarily the people that are actually disturbing the dogs, because the infrastructure has been put in place there by...
I would always, and I use this word blame, the government agencies, because number one, URA and all these people are the ones who plan, right? When you plan, okay, I'm going to destroy this part, I'm going to make this a pathway, these are the people that make it happen. Not us, the humans, like walking, who are even cycling or walking. We're not the ones who made the rules and decided to go on that path. It was created for us by the government agencies. So what I would go back to and say, and this is just me, if you've seen me commenting on these kind of posts where the wild boars come out, they, and all that, I would always say, who are we blaming here? Not the dogs, not the wild boars, not even the pedestrians, or not even the cyclists. Who are we blaming here? The people who made this happen, the government agencies. You guys know who that is. I don't have to call them out, but you know who they are. So I would always say, when you wanted to create this place for the humans to enjoy, did you even think of the wildlife? Where would they go? What would they do?
Yeah, because although we're talking about the community dogs right now, that's not all that's being disturbed.
It's not being affected. It's even the hornbills, right? The birds, the ones that you've never seen them, but recently the hornbills have been on my condo, perched on my balcony.
Yeah.
I've never even seen them before in my entire life. I was like, what is this bird? It's a beautiful bird, but where did it come from? And all the birds are coming out. The monitor lizards, the squirrels, all these beautiful, the kingfisher birds and otters, for one. They're all coming out into and then people will say, oh, you come eat my koi fish. Right? Yeah. But who ate your koi fish? Why did I come all the way here eat your koi fish? Number one, your koi fish, what are doing down there? Right? Number two, you took my habitat away, I had to come out. I don't have anywhere else to go.
So again, for people that don't know, there's this big thing about the otters in Singapore. Their habitats have become smaller and smaller and smaller. And the thing about otters, which a lot of people don't realise, is they require a lot of territory just for one family.
Yeah, perfect. Like the Zukis and the Bishan Park otters and all that. Yeah.
In Singapore, you've got a lot of different otter families which are around. So it means that these otters have basically been...
chased out, right?
Chased out, but they're more doing smash and grabs.
Yeah, they're just doing otters, basically, right?
So
It's
they're
just
like
there. It's just what it is.
breaking into people's gardens.
Yeah, because
and
they can
destroying their
smell the
fish.
beautiful 10,000 koi fish that they have and, forgive them for they're just looking for, it's like us looking for food.
Yeah.
It's just, they don't eat satays and they don't eat, things that you can find.
They can't just go to McDonald's.
Yeah, they can't
and
just
get
go
a
to the
burger.
kopitiam also to just whack the hor fun or whatever that's left out that the other animals can, like the wild boars, can devour.
Yeah.
Right? So literally they're just looking for fish.
So that was another interesting point there, is that people get upset about the wild boars coming to
Exactly.
like food centres and going to the back of restaurants.
Do you know
and
what's
coffee
sad
shops.
about that? They get euthanized by NParks just for
Yeah.
doing that.
So the national parks actually.
Yeah, NParks comes in, euthanizes. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's humanely euthanized. There's no such thing as humanely. Euthanize means euthanize. Okay, you can't brutally euthanize, can you?
You can, technically.
Right? You know what I mean? But would NParks say I brutally
different-
euthanize? No, of course not.
course
They're
not.
going to
No one's
use the
ever
word
gonna say that.
humanely euthanize, but that's BS, right? There's no such thing as humanely. You just euthanize an animal for just coming into a space that was
being
once
an
theirs.
animal.
No, for just once was theirs. Pongo, Pasir Ris, it was once their home. We literally invaded their home. And how dare we say, take them, cull them. That's the word that is used on the Singapore Wildlife Sightings page very often.
Cull.
Cull them. And then I would say, no, you know what? Just do that to yourself. Thank you very much. Do you know what I mean? Like it's yeah.
It kind of sounds like the Singapore street dogs or the community dogs are facing the same problem that wildlife is throughout the world.
Exactly, but it's
Because
just that our community dogs are more in your face. Some of them are
yeah.
friendly. They will come right to people, and
they are dogs.
Yes.
So, I mean, I won't go down this rabbit hole too deep, but the reason that wildlife don't come up to you is because it doesn't serve their purpose. Domesticated dogs, and although these dogs are community dogs or street dogs or jungle dogs, these guys come from domesticated dogs. They're not wild dogs, they're not wolves.
They're not feral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they still come towards people because that benefits them somewhat.
for food,
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
You guys go up and feed the dogs go to you because
Yeah.
it benefits them. So it's more in your face. But the basic issue here is that we're taking away the land that they have been living on. Whether you're talking about wild boars, the birds, the cats. I mean, when I take the dogs I walk where I live, I come across civet cats. They
Which
should
you
be
never knew
living-
existed, right? I mean, in our face.
They're never in your face. I mean,
They were in the forest.
Yeah.
You knew they existed. You just never had
because the
the-
forest habitat's getting smaller, you start to see them out in.
We never had the pleasure of
Exactly.
the beautifulness of these wild animals until now when all the land's taken away.
Exactly. Which
Same
is
goes for the
a
dogs.
weird thing because it means that you do get to enjoy them, but at what cost?
Whose expense?
Okay, so to come back around, so how did you end up, or what was done in the end for these street dogs, community dogs?
Okay, so like I said, so I got in touch with the admin. We did a nice little like do's and don'ts. If you see a community dog, what should you do? What should you not do? So that was posted up. It was very nice of them. It was posted up on the page. They pinned it on the page so people kind of like refer to it. And I've seen that goodness, right? If there's such a word, that because when there were stories again or posts about it, people went, didn't someone already say not to do that? Didn't someone already say not to do that? And then you Bodo person still doing that? And then it'll be like, so we get more traction in positive way now. If you notice the piece, anybody who says anything about the community dogs, Samantha will definitely comment there, and I will have support. So that's a good thing. And then the second thing we did also is, literally I worked with SLA and
SLA?
yeah, Singapore Land Authority for those motorbikers. Because I mentioned cyclists and motorbikers, that place is now not able to go. No motorbikes can go into that place anymore.
Oh, that's
They have
great.
cordoned it off, and there's cameras now to monitor anyone who dares defy and do a pasi gudang for me. So it's not happening there. So the dogs it's quiet, it's beautiful now, it's very safe for them. And that was a couple of months back, and we've been very blessed and very grateful to the government agencies in this stance. We've also worked with NParks to make sure that people are not feeding the wild boars, because that also screws up our feeding. The wild boars comes and fights for the food meant for the dogs.
So wait, there were people feeding the wild boars.
Yes, of course.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe they love wildlife. I don't know. They because sometimes the wild boars are poor thing. No one feeds them, and then they're scavenging for food. Have you seen how they scavenge for food? Like, it's quite sad as well. As much as I want to protect my dogs, it's a double-edged sword. This is really
The thing is to remember there is that wild boars are actually wild animals. They're not strays.
Well, tell it to the feeders.
Well, I can. Basically, the wild boars are designed to scavenge, to forage. And the thing is that when you start to feed them, it's like feeding monkeys. The monkeys don't need to be fed.
But people are doing the same thing.
Exactly, but that's dangerous.
I know.
And you know what? What you did with the bikers, with the motorbikes, you're actually making it safer for them, because the community dogs, yeah, they might get a bite in every now and then, but a wild boar, that's not just going to be a bite.
Yeah, we've seen some posts about how the wild boars have injured people, right?
Yeah, badly.
Badly
Those
wounded.
people are lucky.
Yeah, and because this is their territory. You're coming into my territory, you're going to get it. So, I mean, of course, because I do welfare for the community dogs, so of course in my back of my mind, the community dogs is on priority. But that doesn't mean that we just screw the wildlife. They're still living beings, right?
Yeah, but it's important that we understand what each animal needs.
So the feeders, so that's where I went to NParks and like, you know what? We need to stop these people from feeding. Because otherwise, it gets crazy. It was crazy at one time. It was wild boars all over. The dogs were there, and then the monkeys. It was like a zoo gone wrong.
Well, the problem there is that when you put dogs in particular, now I'll just talk about the dogs, so that's what I know. If you put those dogs in that position, yes, of course, in the early days, the dogs are not going to turn up very good. You know, the wild boars will be the ones that are doing more damage to the dogs. The monkeys will be the ones doing more damage to the dogs. How's that going to look in 20, 30, 40 generations' time? You're going to have these street dogs, these community dogs, that are now even more difficult to rehome. The puppies of those dogs will be even more difficult to rehome because now they're a different dog. Now they're different animals.
They adapt.
Exactly.
That's exactly what would have happened.
Exactly. So these are the little things that I do to ensure the welfare of the community dogs. But we're also thinking of the other living beings that are around there, which is the wildlife. So these are the things that help to kind of like make the situation so much better now.
That's great.
You know.
Okay, so Sam, tell me, what do you feed our community dogs?
I cook rice, minced pork, minced chicken, and I make broth for them as well. And I do give them kibbles because some of the kibbles are quite good, very nutritious.
Yeah.
So, but that's me. Don't hold me against. Not all feeders feed the same thing.
Of course.
But that's so I put a lot of time into the 40 dogs that I feed every night.
Okay, so why did you pick rice and the mince and the kibbles, and
Number
particularly
one,
that brand of kibbles?
Because it's cheaper to do that.
Right.
Bag of kibbles cost me $60, and that only feeds like 3 days.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm just an average person with a full-time job, you know. So I don't ask for donations on my page. I don't. So everything comes out of my own pocket. And now and then I have really kind people members on my page who say, hey Sam, can I donate $50? You know, and that helps. I buy like meat. I go to Foodie and buy meat for them, and then I boil the meat for there. So it's a bit cheaper because it's frozen. And I try my very best to just keep this going. I've been doing this since 2017.
Wow.
So it's been good so far. I have very, very kind, compassionate people on the group who are very regular with different donations. Sometimes they buy kibble, sometimes they buy me rice, sometimes they buy. It's not consistent, of course. You can't expect people to be doing this all the time.
Yeah.
But at least we have kind, compassionate people now and then. It helps.
You say that, but you're doing this all the time.
I know, but I love doing it.
Right.
It's a passion. For me, it's a passion. It's not something that I have to do. It's just I want to do it.
Okay.
So
great.
on your page, do you sort of coordinate with the other feeders throughout the island?
No, so I do this literally. I run this group, as my description in the page says, I literally run it alone. I do the rescue work alone. But I've been blessed to have met some feeders along the way in the location. So I say, oh, okay, what days are you feeding? You feed on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Oh, okay, then I'll feed Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Oh, you only feed the weekends? Okay, I'll take the weekdays. So it really lessens my burden when I make friends and then, I talk to people, and there are really, really wonderful, wonderful feeders out there who come with trolleys, and we're talking about aunties, like 80 years old kind of aunties, not youngsters.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a couple of people
Beautiful, yes.
with their dogs. So like people that have got their own dogs that they've rescued from the streets, or puppies from dogs that were on the streets and they needed behavioural help, and that's perfectly normal. But then I would notice there was the two ladies in particular that I'm thinking of, they actually had hired helpers, domestic helpers, specifically to cook for these dogs. So there's been 2 or 3 helpers being hired specifically to cook for dogs every single day and then distribute it throughout the island.
Some of these people are blessed. They're able to afford helpers. But some of them, I don't have a helper. And so a lot of feeders that I know don't have. So after work, we scramble with our own family commitments, right? And then we pack and then to the night. So my feeding times are from 8 to 11 at night, every night. And then I'm blessed to find some feeders who say, oh, don't worry about it. You're doing every night. Just let me do the weekends because I'm not working. I'm like, thank you. So, when I meet these kind of people, it's really, really so nice to see that people want to help each other for the same goal, to feed the community dogs.
Absolutely. But that's a really long night. And you also work during the morning. So why do you do that? What drives you?
So first of all, I started this whole thing because there was a cat-dog conflict in Tampines. And the people who were supposed to be helping didn't help. So I stepped in and I had a coffee shop chat with the Malays. Really beautiful, very, very nice people. We want to do what's best for our animals. So they wanted the best for their cats. And I wanted the best for my dogs. What was the thing that was to do? Sit down, compromise, and have a peace talk. Rather than posting negative stuff on social media, what does that do? Nothing. It just gaslights, it makes it worse. And in the end, who suffers? The cats and the dogs. So the people who are supposed to be doing this, the organizations don't. They don't step up. So it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter who does it, as long as somebody does it. And I was happy to step up. So that's how it all started. And then it became, Tampines. Then there's Pasir Ris, there's some dogs. Tampines, there's Pasir Ris. But then I have some dogs now in the part of North that, that about 10 of them that need skinny and need help. So I shuttle, right, from Pasir Ris, Tampines, and I scoop over to the North, far end of the North. So it takes so much time to travel. It's not the feeding time that takes time. It's the traveling time that takes time. But I do it, in a heartbeat.
Okay, so Sam, can you tell us more about the cost of doing something like this 7 days a week, 8 to 11 p.m. every day?
I would say $200 a week. If I do rice and kibbles. If I go full-on kibbles, it's $400 a week.
And if you add the meat?
I would say monthly, I would say sometimes even 1,000.
1,000?
Yeah,
wow.
$1,000 a month.
That's quite a
because
commitment.
sometimes Chinese New Year, I'll get them special. So I will have my friend. I have a friend who bakes for dogs. So she'll do a sweet potato cake.
Nice.
With some Chinese words with ingots with turmeric coloring, that kind of thing. So I spend a bit more. Like in Christmas, they had roast. I bought a turkey, but I don't marinate it. But I roast it. So they get the the crispiness of the turkey.
Skin.
Yeah, that's something that the meat is different. So for occasions, I would do something a little bit more pricey, a bit more expensive.
Of course.
Yeah, and I buy them sometimes dehydrated treats from my friend who does that, or crocodile meat dehydrated. So just treats, especially new dogs that I meet. I need them to, like me, come
Get
to
comfortable.
me, condition them. Yeah. So
That actually
extra
brings-
treats. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. That actually brings me to my next point. Can you describe more about the behaviors from start to finish?
Right. So we do have very, very, very skittish ones who will scoot the moment they see me. I come out with the packets and they'll just scoot and you won't even see them.
Yep.
So what we do is I will put the packets there. So we have to be very responsible feeders. And Parks makes this a very big thing. And NEA as well. Do not litter the place. When you feed the dogs, pack it up, maybe not immediate, but come back a couple hours later, pick it up, throw it away, be responsible feeders. And it's also, it invites rodents, cockroaches, rats, whatever. So we have to really be very responsible feeders for the good, because that they have diseases now that affects our dogs. We have had dogs that have died due to, all that. So, skittish ones, yes. And we also have, I've never met aggressive ones, but a bit more territorial, I would say. So they will come with low growls, things like that. So, I've done this for so long. I know how to react to this kind of, so we have the upscale, we have the really easy ones who come with the waggy tails, and we have the ones that will just come and they will be full on with a bit of growl. So, we have a combination of a whole lot.
Yeah, so that actually proves our point when we talk about dog training, a lot the behavioral sciences behind, especially a lot of our community dogs. So as some of you at home, you might have your own Singapore special and stuff like that.
Yay.
They display the exact same behaviors that what Sam just described. Most of them can be skittish, most of them might be territorial in the form of low growls and stuff like that. So it's not something that it's they learned. It's something that's built into them.
Yes.
They did this, they are like this because they have to survive. This is the only way they know how.
Behavioral instincts for survival. Right? And that's where you guys come in, because we take them from the streets, we send them for training. You know, to make them a little bit more domesticated, because it has been proven, and you guys have done so many dogs, and it's been proven that they can be rehabilitated. They can be. Of course, you need the right owners. You can't just have someone who says, okay, take my dog, rehab it. It's not going to work. So same for these dogs. They come like that, but they go through a little transition, which is you guys, and then they come up to be beautiful dogs.
I mean, as we're recording this, we've got one just lying over there that's not moved the whole recording.
He hasn't moved since we started this whole thing, which is a couple hours back. He hasn't moved at all.
To be fair, Aramis is ridiculously chilled out, so you go special.
Yeah, he's now on his side. He was on his front earlier just now.
It's interesting. So this is something that I will want to try and bring somebody on to talk about at one stage. But you've been doing this for a long time. Have you seen the behaviour become more skittish over the years? Because there's an interesting point about the street dogs, and this was not done just on Singapore, this was done throughout Southeast Asia, that the longer you have a community of street dogs, the more their genetics start to change to be more wild, almost. So they start to become more skittish because being towards people doesn't hold as much value as it once did. So the truck coming down the road doesn't care how that dog's acting. It's going to hit them whether they're there or not.
Yes.
You know, so the dogs become more likely to run away rather than approach. Is this something you've noticed, or your
yes
methods?
and no. Yes and no, because some of these dogs may have come from, example, fish farms where they are locked up, for example, during the day and only let out at night. So they will magnify a different kind of behavior, right? It's like, I'm wild and free from like 9 at night to 9 in the morning. I'm allowed to roam. The gates are open. I'm just allowed to roam and find for my own food, right? So I'm like, yay, hello, Sam, hi. And then the ones that are like not allowed to roam at all, and the gate accidentally opens, those are the fierce ones, right? They'll come right for you. And the ones who are being abused by these fish farm owners are the ones who will be skittish, because one hand raised means a whack is coming. So the moment I put my hand up to take a packet of food from the car or whatever it is, as long as I raise my hand up, an action that triggers their memory of the kind of abuse or the kind of love, in inverted commas, that they get from where they come from or where they are being stored or kept, reflects the kind of actions I will see when I feed them.
That makes sense. So I guess it's difficult for you to really see that because they come from quite a wide range. Some of them will be dogs that live in the forest. Some of them have been on fish farms. Some of them at like nurseries.
Or abandoned, for that matter. Yeah, somebody who was somebody's dog. So those are the ones that you say, paw, and they'll give you a paw. Then you'll be like, oh my God, this came from someone's house.
Yeah. So I guess that does make it kind of tough. And it also makes it kind of more heartbreaking.
It is.
Well, these are the ones I saved straight away.
Yeah.
You know,
I
not without a heart. I'll call SPCA or I'll liaise with NParks. I said, you know what, I have this dog, this. I'll give them a rundown, and then we'll help. Together with them, I work, and then we'll...
And that makes sense. It's a difficult thing to do because a lot of people are like, well, why can't you just help all of the dogs? Well, some of the dogs that were born in the forest and raised in the forest, they don't need as much help as a dog that was born in a shelter, then adopted by somebody irresponsible, that ended up now on the street. And although they've got the genetics, they've got no practical experience.
They have no survival instinct.
Yeah,
they cannot survive there. Outside, I will see them with wounds inflicted by maybe another pack of dogs, another group of dogs, or I see them too skinny. They don't know how to fight for food. They only know how to empty a dustbin. How many dustbins are there on the streets of, for example, Kranji? How many dustbins with food? Because that's all they know how to do, empty dustbins.
Yep.
They don't know how to...
And for those that don't know, those areas are like very, very isolated areas where there's not going to be very much.
Or not even a feeder in sight.
Yeah.
Like what I do is when I see someone or another post or somebody will tag me, Sam, can you help? So I would go, like Sungai Buloh or whatever, these kind of places that people don't normally go, but I would go because someone told me there are skinny dogs there. And then it becomes my feeding place, for example.
So to move back to the authorities, because earlier on you spoke about dealing with NParks and LTA and all of those government organisations, but what sort of work do you do with NParks for preparation rather than reactivity towards a certain instant? And is there anybody else that you work with?
So I've been very blessed that NParks wants to work with a member of public like myself, even though I think they see what I do. People who know me or who have come across or who've come in contact with me or my work, they know what I've done, and I do it alone. So I think I've earned some brownie points or graces with people in general, not just organizations, but with people. And that's why they donate, right? And they want to chip in for this and that and small little things. And NParks is a very great organization, and they've been very kind to help step up to of course where it's possible, where their bandwidth allows. They have been very, very supportive. I must give them. I always credit NParks. I credit where credit's due. Okay, to be fair to in general. And so we have we talk about a lot of things. Like sometimes I say, I have this little problem here, this, what's your best, what can you advise me, what's a good thing to do, being the governing, they are the body that takes care of the welfare of our community animals. So it is only right that I go to them and ask for advice on what can be done, what's legal, what's not, and then from there I decide, okay, what do I want to do? How can you help me help them? Them meaning the community dogs. And SPCA, in my opinion, is probably the best animal welfare group we have here.
So is that the only animal welfare group that you really work with?
Yes, I do, because I think they work with their heart. I think that's what's important for me. It's we don't deal with politics or human behavior or anything like that. Our goal is always, what is the bottom line? What is the welfare? If we're going to do this, so how are we helping the dogs? If we do this, how are we helping the dogs? The dogs always pop up in our conversations. Never humans, never anything else. Just how are we going to help? If we do this, what's the cause and effect for the dogs? Every single time, dogs. So for me, that's why I work with SPCA, because we have a common goal.
Yeah.
Our hearts are always in it.
So I do a lot of work with a number of different animal welfare groups, but of course I work on the rehabilitation after rehoming, so it is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But what exactly do you do with SPCA with regard to the community dogs?
Yeah, so for example, I do TNRM, if you know. So TNRM is the trap, neuter. So okay, let me just make this very clear. T for Thailand, R for Russia, N for Norway, and for Malaysia. TNRM, okay? So that means we trap, we neuter them, because neutering stops the population from increasing, which is what we want. Even though we'll miss seeing little puppies around, but we miss all that. The population has to be decreased in that sense, okay? So that's where the neutering comes in. Then there is rehab, where you guys come in. There is rehome, where we have even independent rescuers who actually rehome, independent rescuers, independent feeders who do the rehoming. Of course, we will seek SPCA's help when all else is, failing and we are short of. Because we don't, number one, we're doing this out of our own pockets, our own time. Unlike the animal welfare groups, they are being paid to do it. They have the bandwidth to do it. They have a team to help. We do everything on our own.
But we've also got to be aware that what I've experienced with some independent rehomers is, yes, of course, now and again you get very good ones, but generally when I've come across independent rehomings, I end up working with adopters that are incredibly ill-equipped to have a dog with behavioural problems. And that's a big concern of mine, to be honest.
I'm hearing you, and while I can't speak for every single rehomer, I do need to put this out there, that these rehomers are doing it out of their own time, maybe with no help from anybody else, which is supposed to be helping, but they don't get the help that they want. And they end up really stretching themselves. Stretching themselves also means forgetting that we need responsible owners for these dogs.
So that's probably where it comes in to be more important.
Because
the welfare groups involved.
Sometimes, I've been doing this since 2017 with the help of NParks and SPCA only, and it's been working more than fine. We've rehomed dogs to almost perfect homes. I guess because we follow the protocol. So I have a form that I give out to our adopters to make sure, and I do site visits, recce, and then follow-ups and stuff. And while I say this with the best of intentions, not all organizations do a good job either.
No,
because I've had dogs from big name animal welfare groups that have been dumped with us because they, number one, don't want to take it back. They're too busy to respond.
Yep.
So I'm sitting on both sides of the swing here in saying that the independent rehomers do not have to do this. Number one, it's not our job, but we do it with our heart. The AWGs have to do it; it's their job, but maybe they don't do it well, or there are some other reasons for it. But it is, we pick up a lot of stuff from,
No, of course. I mean, I'm not saying that only independent rescuers rehome poorly. I mean, I've worked with some animal welfare groups, which I just flat out refuse to work with now.
Yeah.
Because the rehoming process was so poor.
Slipshod. Very slipshod. Yeah.
And eventually they ended up blaming the adopters.
Exactly.
Or blaming the rehabilitation and trainers, saying that, oh, the adopters aren't doing a good job, or you guys aren't doing a good job. You've done this the same for the last 3 people we referred you to. But actually it's because they're rehoming a dog which is not suitable for the family that we're rehoming them to. And it's actually very dangerous. I've seen some really bad bite incidents because of that before we've even had a chance to show up. And it's something that's very important. You've got to remember that these animals are indeed animals. That they want to survive. They don't understand our world. So just because you've got an old uncle that, has dementia and screaming at the top of his voice, the dog doesn't understand what's going on, so the dog reacts as they feel they need to.
I have, in fact, I have 2 boys of my own, 2 Singapore specials, and one of them was taken from an animal welfare group. And when he started to show signs of aggression and stuff very early, and I went back to them, and they were like, get a trainer. So if it was because I know what I'm doing after so many years, and of course, coming into contact with knowledgeable people like yourselves, I know what I need to do. But what if you got someone who was clueless about what train what? Take a cane and train and whack and train. That's training too. I whack you, I train you. It's training too. But what we're trying to use is a certain methodology, right?
Well, the most up-to-date
exactly
cognitive
But would I know,
knowledge,
as a person, if you tell me, go find trainer, would I know which trainer is like the good trainer? And would I know what is trainer?
To be honest, that's one of the things that we are trying to explain with this podcast.
Yeah.
So I understand that dog training has been going on for hundreds of years. I understand that people have been using a method which seemingly worked. I also understand that cognitive science develops and changes. What I did 5 years ago is not the same thing I do now. I guarantee if you ask me in another 5 years if what I'm doing is the same, I guarantee it'll be different again. What I'm not going to do is use the same methods that were used 40 years ago.
But I think that's what's happening.
That's exactly what's happening.
Because a lot of my friends, not just people that I hand dogs to, but friends, they say, oh, have you met this and so? Have you seen this so and so? I was like, what does he do? Oh, he's taught my dog to sit. I said, I can do that for free. To ask your dog to sit and take a paw, I can do that for free. Why did you have to pay him $100 for an hour? Do you know what I mean? So it's I think what we need to do for the awareness of this podcast, or the ones going forward, which you guys are doing, is we need to tell people out there, a trainer is not just a trainer. It doesn't mean that he has the designation trainer. That means he can train. Yeah, he can train a dog. I don't know, depends. Like my boy Paolo, he needs, so that's what Fraser's coming to, to have a look at Paolo at some point. But we do need help. Like, and what kind of training? So some good things, some good points that Fraser actually gave me just out of the box was like, he needs to feel secure. Paolo needs to feel secure. Otherwise, he wants to bite, he'll want to react. So I've been going with the safety at the back of my head. And I tell you, it's worked. One very big example of something that just happened this morning was my makcik. My makcik is as a Malay cleaner. She cleans the condo, and she's a lovely soul. She's not scared of him. He's huge. He's 40 kg. She wasn't even flinching at the sight of him, which other people would have flown far away. Hey, take the next leaf. That kind of crap. So and she came and she was like, oh, so cute, your dogs, and all that. She said it in Malay. Of course, we spoke in Malay. And then the first thing that came to my mind, safety. I put him behind me. He went behind me. He didn't react, nothing whatsoever. But when Machi came a bit close and he went, and then he went hide again. So the what Fraser gave me, that one word, safety, was training. It was training Samantha to train Paulo that safety is one of the critical feelings that I have to pass on to him.
And this is the funniest thing, though, is what you're talking about is not actually training. It could be training
exactly
you.
my point.
It's actually just behaviour.
Yeah,
You know?
behaviour.
So we'll not go on about this too long. That's actually a good episode for a different podcast.
I just want to just bring this up that,
But a lot of people get mixed up between dog training, dog rehabilitation, and behavioural shaping. And a lot of people, even trainers, they say, oh no, it's the same thing. Well, I'll tell you right now, if you think it's the same thing, you're doing something wrong. But as we say, as good as it is to talk about that, let's just jump back onto the community dog.
Yeah, so Sam, how can the public help?
Well, of course, it's very difficult because, sometimes I do ask for help, like feeding, but the response is very poor. It's either very poor or people don't know what to do. How do I feed? And then they will ask me, and then I will tell them, and then they get scared because they heard 40 packets, they heard rice, they heard mix, they heard, so the whole process.
It's actually very overwhelming.
It's a very committed process. I will use the word committed because people have the heart to do it. But to stay in and to do it for the long haul.
It's like going to the gym.
You want to become thin, but you don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You want to see the dogs, but you don't want to put in the work. It doesn't work that way. Nothing is so easy. I've had public coming to ask for help, and I've given, like, of course, donation is the fastest, the easiest. Whatever amount donated to us, and then whenever I buy food, I usually tag the people who, I put a receipt there so that people know, I paid for that. I mean, it's not a bad thing. People always want to know where their money is going, especially when I'm not a full-fledged animal welfare group, right? But that doesn't mean that we don't do half as good. Some of us do a way better job than they do. Yeah. So it's not I don't think we see, even an individual rescuer, independent rescuer can do so much more work than an organization with just one man.
Yes.
So when we donate, I get it that you want to see where your money is going to. So we are very, we're very full on. We're very clear and transparent. Yeah. If you've donated, I'll attach a receipt and say, thank you, whoever and whoever, for your love for community dogs. And then you see where your money is going.
Right. I believe there's also a safety aspect to this. Could you elaborate more on that?
Yeah. So I would say if you've never been around a community dog, please don't. Full stop. Because it's not about you, saying, I fed these dogs today, give me a trophy. It's not about that. It's about saying, because for me, on the contrary, when I feed, I come back and say, oh my God, I've done such a good job. Like I say to myself, and I feel like so good about it. And it's, when I say about commitment, it's like I had because I do real estate. I had my D&D, which ended at 11:30 last Wednesday. I was decked in gold, sequin, tight dress with a freaking very 6-inch red heels. I finished at 11:30 and I went all the way to the east, fed the dogs. 12:15, they'll be wondering, why are you coming at this hour? And it's my sleeping time. And who the hell are you with these sequins? And it's like, I need sunglasses, And then I scoot over 40 minutes later to the north. And I feel it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. And then my husband's like, what the hell are you doing? It's 1 o'clock. You have to work tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, no, I want to do this. I never say I need to. I say I want to do this.
Yeah.
So the commitment level is what I'm looking for. If you want to help, we're very happy to have. But if you're coming on board, stick with us for a while.
Well, with that, Sam, I just want to thank you very much because I think that was great. But now we're at the stage where we're going to take some questions and answers from people that have written into us.
Okay.
For anybody else out there, if you want to ask questions, please do. Comment on our posts on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or email us directly. But the first question of today came from somebody you might know. Why do you have to do it when there's so many other people in the country that could also do it?
It's not about have, it's about wanting to do it. People have to, if you tell people have to do it, then they feel that they have to do it. And then they'll come 2 weeks and then they'll disappear. Then they'll ghost me. So why do I want too many ghostings when I can do it consistently by myself? Because when I have random people coming to say they want to help, I have to ask them, can you please send me a picture? Can you please let me know whether there's any problems? And then I have to go and check later. Not that I don't trust the person, but I remember it's all about the dogs.
It becomes more of a hassle than
it becomes double work for me. And then I don't trust. because I'm not sure whether the person knows exactly where to put, whether the person really put it there, and then it becomes a issue, and then the person gets angry. What if I took a picture? You don't think I didn't? You think I didn't feed the dogs? And then it becomes tension. I don't want that. I want just positive vibes all the way when it comes to the dogs. I don't want any negativity anywhere.
Makes sense. Okay. Our next question comes from Fatima in Singapore as well. What do you do when you come across a street dog while you're out walking? So Jay, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, well, the one thing that you shouldn't do, especially after listening to this whole podcast, is don't stare at them, don't suddenly stop, just keep walking. And if you see someone else, if you see the person walking their dog, or if it's just a street dog, like completely without an owner and anything like that, don't try to engage, don't try to make contact with it whatsoever, because they're more scared of you than you are of them. I am 100% sure of that. So don't be one of those people who say like, oh, you know what, I'm great with dogs. They'll warm up to me really fast. Yeah, the only thing that they'll warm up to is their mouth on your face. So I'm sorry to say that, but it really annoys me when I'm working with clients and then they have a reactive dog or a skittish dog or anything along those lines, and then people just walk by and they stop and they stare, whether they're afraid or they even if they have good intentions. It doesn't help them at all. Just leave them be. And if the owner comes to you and tells you like, oh, you know what, my dog's actually very friendly, then you approach the dog and interact with it.
And our last question for today is from Melvina in Jakarta. So her question is, do the dogs always turn up when you go out to feed them? And do you always go even if it's like raining or really, really hot?
I'll answer that in two parts. So the first answer, the dogs don't always turn up. Number one, they could have found food elsewhere in the day, during the day. Someone else could have just randomly fed them something really full, so they'll just be sleeping or something else. Because these places that I go to are not full-fledged residential houses. They are like foresty area, industrial parks and stuff like that. So they don't just sit there and wait unless they're hungry. So no is the answer to that part of the question. And rain or shine, yes. Come hell, wind, fire, I'm there. Every night. So my husband will tell me, but it's raining. I said, so? The dogs are hungry. They'll be waiting for my food. And these dogs, you'll be surprised, some of them will be waiting in the rain. They will be waiting for me in the rain. So when I come and it's raining and I'm there and I'm like, this is why I came.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, thank you very much for this. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure others will appreciate it as well.
Yeah.
So that's the end of this episode. But for anybody listening at home or wherever you're listening, if you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask us either via comments on our posts or directly via email. All of that will be in the show notes. And indeed, if you have any topics that you think would be a really good one to bring up, then we'll definitely do that. And that brings me to this. Sam, we also know that you do rescuing of individual dogs and you rehome them and things like that.
Yeah.
A lot of these can be very difficult cases. I will ask you if you're willing to come back on at some stage.
Yep.
Because I feel it's very important not just to talk about cases where the dogs get rehomed and they get
happy
rehabilitated,
endings.
not just
always.
the happy endings.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not so happy.
Yeah.
And as much as that might be slightly tough to digest, I think that's something that we want to talk about.
Yeah, I think
at
the
some
public
stage.
needs to know we're creating some awareness of the good and bad of this whole thing. Right?
Absolutely.
The work that we do.
But with that, thank you very much.
And I'd like to say something before we end.
Oh, of course.
Please be compassionate to our community animals, whether it's the cats, the dogs. If you see them, if you can't do anything about it, don't hurt them. Leave them alone. You know what I mean? Because in Singapore, we're considered quite good, but in like countries like India and all, you will see street dogs being whacked to death and things like that. It's very, very heartbreaking. I've seen it happen before because I volunteer with the Soy Dog in Phuket and the Bali Association. When I go to Bali, I volunteer with them for the street dogs, and I've seen horrible cases. I cry. And so if you do see the animals in the streets, like, we don't have many animal lovers. Some of us are not animal lovers, okay? So just walk on.
I think that's a perfect place to end, Sam. But before we do go, if people want to follow your Facebook page, if people want to find you, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to help, if they want to donate, how do they do that?
please go to my Facebook page. You will just literally key in welfare for you will see a Singapore flag before the word community dogs, just to say that I'm doing welfare for our Singapore community dogs, but I just didn't want the word Singapore there. The flag looked prettier. So welfare for community dogs. You can DM me on Facebook. I'm also present on Instagram. Same thing. Fitting which, Samantha, my name is Samantha. So you'll be able to find me anyway if they are affiliated. DM me.
And what we'll also do is we'll put all of that detail into the show notes for anybody that wants to.
It's been a pleasure, Fraser.
Absolutely, you too.
Thank you, guys.